Hi, ladies. I'm so excited to see you all tonight. Tonight is going to be a very great night. We are here with Phallon, who is going to be going over some mental health awareness tips for you all. So I'm super excited to have her. She has been presenting with the pageant for a few years now, and so we're always grateful to have her on these calls with us. So with that being said, Phallon, if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides, and then we'll allow you to go ahead and take the floor.
Hello, everyone. How you guys doing? Good, kind of good. Good. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Awesome. So my name is Phallon Foxworth, and I was actually going back through the emails, and this is, I believe, my third time presenting, and so I'm very excited to be back. I'm very excited to share some good information with you all. And last year, I think we ran to about 15 plus minutes of questions at the end. So I am going to make sure I leave, a good amount of space for you guys to ask any questions that you might have, ask anything about resources and the like. Throughout the presentation, I have some affirmations. I'm very big on affirmations and just positive statements in general. And so if you see one that you like, you want to jot it down, or it just inspires you to create your own, then that's more than enough for me. Let's see. I have to click, or I have to space bar. There we go. All right, so here is our first affirmation. I persevere, I am relentless, I keep going. And so with this affirmation, the importance of not only being consistent, not only having this perseverance to do more, to be great in all of this, but to also keep in mind that in the midst of me pushing and going forward and trying to do all of the things on my checklist and be this amazing person, I also need to check in with myself, and we'll circle back on what that looks like in a little bit. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Phallon Foxworth. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I attended Spelman College, where I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology in 2018. And then I went on to Boston University School of Medicine to get my master's in mental health counseling and behavioral medicine. I graduated in 2020. And so since then, I have been doing individual and group therapy. My primary group that I work with are Black women struggling with depression, anxiety, adjustment, trauma, perfectionism. Those are some popular areas that I work with. I found that I really love working with college students, and so that's what my background has looked like. I've also had experience working in correctional settings, other higher levels of care, like partial hospitalization programs, so on and so forth. So that's just a bit about me. And so the next affirmation is, mistakes and setbacks are stepping stones to my success because I learned from them. So sometimes when we have things that don't go our way, that don't go according to plan, then we just kind of feel like everything is thrown off track, or that I might be a failure or anything like that. If we can shift our thinking from this being a solely negative event, of course we want to give ourselves time to not be happy about it, be sad about it, whatever it might be. But that doesn't mean that this is something that is happening to me, or this is something that has to be detrimental, right? With respect to some things, we want to keep in mind that sometimes being redirected is a blessing in disguise. So that's the background behind this affirmation. So, in talking about mental health, I wanted to go over a few areas that, of course, I hear most common. So with depression, it's become a lot more common for us to speak about depression. It's not where, it might be ideal, but it's become more of a topic. And so some common signs or symptoms of depression would be sleeping more, having trouble sleeping, trouble eating, or eating more than we used to, feeling this low, depressed, consistent mood that's really hard to shake off. We might have suicidal thoughts, and I'll share more about that later on, because it's something that needs to be named in general. We also might have a lack of interest in things that we used to like before. If I know that I loved going to my I don't know, soccer practice after school, and then all of a sudden it's not really interesting anymore, I don't have the energy to go, then not saying that's automatically depression, but it's just something to take note of. Anxiety is something that, if not all of us, most of us can relate to. And so that can look like having, again, a change in our appetite, a change in our sleep. It can also feel like a panic attack. So like our heart might start racing. We might have this like overwhelming sense of panic, a lot of like thoughts that might be racing. Those are really common symptoms of anxiety. And then lastly, PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. The biggest thing that I want to note here is that a lot of people don't know that when experiencing PTSD, it doesn't have to just be something that directly happened to us. It could be something we saw on the news or that we learned happened to someone else. We can have that like third party trauma from things that might not have happened directly to us. And those symptoms can look kind of similar to anxiety, but a mental health professional can tease it out a little bit more. And if you guys have more specific questions about PTSD later on, I'm definitely open to answer, but I just don't want to possibly trigger anyone by going too deep into it. Then you also have stressors, and stressors could definitely be the pandemic. We've come out of it, but there are still some leftover residual effects of the pandemic that we're still trying to bounce back from, where for about 2-3 years, life looked a lot different. Grief and loss is also a stressor. And so it doesn't just have to be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of the opportunity of someone's car getting repoed. That's loss. Those types of things can still have a significant impact on our day-to-day. Life adjustment and changes. Going to college is a big life adjustment. Again, I love working with college students, so I hear it often. I am in this random place I've never been in before, around all these people that I didn't know existed a month ago, and I am having trouble just getting used to being independent, waking myself up, being responsible for my own laundry, whatever it might be. But then there can be other life adjustments or changes, such as just divorce or moving to another state with family. Things like that can be big stressors. Family stress, and then friendship and relationship stress. I think we've all been there at some point or know what that looks like and can feel like. And so that can also have a pretty big impact on what our day-to-day looks like or feels like. And so the results of all of these, they can impact us differently. We might not always be aware of it. All of a sudden, one day somebody might say to us, like, hey, you're not, hanging out with us as much as you used to. Oh, okay, I didn't really notice that. Maybe that might be a cause to take a step back and think, what's been going on? Why have I been caught up? Is it just I'm caught up with homework and extracurriculars? Or have I just not really been interested in talking lately? And what's that about? Okay. So, next affirmation, I am in charge of how I feel, and today I am choosing happiness. So this affirmation is pretty straightforward. Just taking the initiative and the push, because sometimes it is a push to feel joy, feel happy, or feel motivated, and take heed of where we are and our thinking and doing something about it. So aside from what I shared on the previous slide about mental health signs and symptoms and stressors, sometimes we can just have a hard time with trusting others. It could be worrying about other people's perceptions. How am I perceived by friends, family, classmates, and what does that mean for me? Appearances and self-esteem, whether it's social media, going to school, going to class, or just things that have been instilled in us through our upbringing or our surroundings, then our appearances and self-esteem, or even just how we think of ourselves, can have a pretty big impact on how we feel day to day. And then again, lastly, the impact of social media. What we see and how we perceive others versus our own lives. It's been pretty common that I've heard people come in my office and say that has at least something to do with how they're feeling, whether it's depression, anxiety, self-worth, etc. This is just one of my favorite affirmations. Comparison's a thief of joy. Sometimes you just gotta say it to yourself. When we are comparing ourselves to the next person, if we're always looking at, say we're running a race and we're looking at what the person next to us is doing, we're not focusing on what's ahead of us. And so if I can shift my perspective from what everyone else has going on to what I have going on, then I'm filling my cup and focusing on me, and only good things can come from that. Right? I know I am smart and capable. Having an adjective to describe ourselves, knowing who we are, and adding that to an affirmation can be another great way to give ourselves a little boost. Some clients, I have them have affirmations on their phone where they have like an alarm that just goes off at certain points of the day. And that'll be a reminder of them to either affirm themselves, or they just see an affirmation that they have pre-planned. It's like, okay, let me take a step back. Let me remind myself that I'm that girl and all that good stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, then I would definitely recommend. All right, so I talked about all the things that can feel not great and what that looks like, but I also want to make sure I give you guys some coping skills and some ideas for wellness. And so if ever we're struggling with something going on in our lives or with a mental health concern, then distracting ourselves can be helpful, especially if it's something that doesn't have an immediate resolution or we have to really push through. It is okay to find something to distract ourselves with. I'm gonna always encourage us to find something that's healthy to distract ourselves with, whether that's a hobby, an activity, something else from the coping list, but it is okay to try to take our mind off of it. Engage in an activity that has a competing emotion. I have maybe 2 comedy specials, one for sure, that I love to watch that's a go-to if ever I'm having a day where I'm just not feeling it. And so if you can find something that you enjoy, something that makes you feel good, that you can do whenever you're not feeling great, that's a great one to keep in your toolbox, as I tell my clients. Talking with others, especially those who are experiencing similar feelings. If you have a friend that you know also has a hard time with self-esteem, sometimes just naming it and saying it, like, girl, sometimes I just don't like what I see in the mirror. Girl, me too. And then you have a conversation from there. Knowing that you're not alone can be a great starting point in feeling better about whatever is going on. Avoid ruminating. And ruminating is pretty much when I sit and just stew on something that's going on. When we give a lot of time and attention to the things that don't make us feel good or the things that are negative, then our emotions are gonna follow that. And so if we can shift to something else, something more positive, or even just something neutral, then that's better than staying in a headspace that doesn't feel good. Self-care, we use that term a lot. And so that could be resting, eating, breathing, making sure that my basic needs are being addressed, taking a shower, doing my hair. Those things sound very simple and very basic, but they can be a great framework for feeling better if ever we are really down in the dumps or just not feeling great. Self-help and mental health books. You can find them at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, TikTok, probably. You can find them everywhere. I would encourage you to try to do a little bit of research on who wrote it, and just make sure we're digesting things that are coming from sources that, are where we want to be and that are healthy. I'll just put it that way. Beware of substance use. We're just going to put it out there. Sometimes we may think that if I use this substance, then I'll feel better. And ultimately, it doesn't help because, one, when we sober up, the problem is likely still there. And 2, we're not pushing through the discomfort of whatever might be going on and learning how to cope with it. Substance use can be a common way of trying to get around, avoid, or numb certain situations. And so I don't want to demonize it. I also want everyone to be aware that it likely isn't a solution to what's going on. Writing and journaling, sometimes just getting it out there if we don't want to say it. Writing is a great way of processing. Trying free activities or hobbies that might be good for the budget, that's always a great thing. And so if there's something that's going on that's local to you that you might be interested in, or even just going for a walk, those are all ways to cope. Music, I have some clients create a playlist specifically for certain moods. And so when they're going through states of depression, then they might have music that they know is uplifting or motivating or has some type of encouraging message. If they're feeling anxious, they have songs that they know are relaxing that help soothe their mind. And so music can be a good way to cope. Physical activity, getting some type of exercise in will always be great. You get those natural endorphins and all the good feelings after you're done. You might not feel the best depending on your fitness. I know I can't stand, I went to a cycling class last night and I was not happy for those 45 minutes, but walking out of there, you do feel a difference. And so that's an option. You don't have to go hard. You don't have to spend hours doing something, but even if you pull up a video on YouTube and follow that for 15 minutes, that's much better than sitting still when our body might be wanting to move. Getting some sun. I know right now we're in the time where it's getting darker earlier, and so it's harder to catch the sun. However, seasonal affective disorder is a diagnosis for the fall winter time where you have the holidays going on, it's colder, it's darker, and it affects our mental well-being. So if you can get some sun while you can, that's definitely encouraged. If you have a faith practice or spirituality and that's something that you feel like you can lean on, that's always a way to cope. And then sometimes we just gotta be our biggest cheerleader. We may not always have someone that can say the right thing, or we may not always be able to talk to a therapist, whatever it might be. Sometimes we do have to just cheer ourselves on. And if anything, remember that this too shall pass. I imagine that everyone has overcome something in their life, and here you are. And so keeping your mind on that, even if it's something going on currently or in the future that you've never had to deal with before, you've faced tough stuff before. And so you can face this as well. So those are some coping skills. The next affirmation is I am enough, point blank period, and you are, okay? And so now I want us to practice a coping skill together. This one is one of my favorites because you don't really need anything besides yourself. And it is called box breathing. And so all you have to do is remember the number 4. I'm gonna guide us through practicing for about a minute or two. I'm gonna have you take a deep breath in through your nose for 4 seconds, and then you're gonna hold it for 4 seconds, out through your mouth for 4 seconds, and then there's a 4-second pause. This can be really good for anxiety in particular, because if ever we're experiencing anxiety and our heart rate starts to go up, then when we can focus on our breathing, it helps bring our heart rate back down. And if we're also having maybe racing thoughts or just anxiety inducing thoughts, our attention is on something else. It's on counting and breathing. And so those two things together can help bring us down a few notches as far as anxiety. Or once you get a good feel of what it's like to do this without counting, I encourage clients to do like a visualization or like have their headphones in. Like I always picture myself on a beach somewhere under a little cabana. I might play some ocean sounds in my headphones. You can go as far as that to really create like an immersive experience. And all of that can enter a state of meditation. So we're gonna practice together. I'm going to count us through maybe like the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then I'm gonna stop counting because I get sick of hearing my own voice, and I think you guys will have the pace by then. I'll still guide you, but I'll just count for the first few rounds. I just want you to notice what you're experiencing as we're doing the breathing exercise. You might have other things cross your brain while you're breathing. You might think about what you're going for dinner, all the homework you have, what's going on with so-and-so. That's okay. For just these 2 minutes, I'm gonna encourage you to take note that that thought came up and then let it pass, all right? You can come back to it later. These 2 minutes are for you. It's Tuesday. It's, I imagine, the beginning of the semester. There's a lot on the to-do list. Take these 2 minutes for you, all right? So you guys are welcome to keep your eyes open or closed, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Try to sit in as much of a comfortable position as you can. I just want you to notice the natural pace of your breathing. I want you to notice your chest rising and falling, feeling your lungs expanding. If you feel any discomfort in the way you're sitting, take this time to adjust and breathe. And then we will begin by taking a deep breath in through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, and pause. 2, 3, 4, in through your nose. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, and pause. 2, 3, 4, in through your nose. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, and pause. We're gonna keep going without my counting. Deep breath in through your nose. And hold. Out through your mouth. And pause. In through your nose. And hold. Out through your mouth. And pause. Last 2 times. In through your nose. And hold. Out through your mouth. And pause. Last time, biggest breath of the day. Deep breath in through your nose. Hold. Out through your mouth. And pause. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, take your time, slowly move your muscles, stretch a little bit. All right, so again, that is box breathing. All you gotta do is remember the number 4 and you're good to go, all right? I used to call it like a 4 for 4 for breathing, like, you know, the Wendy's 4 for 4, because it's deeper, yeah. Anyway, all right, next slide. I think this is my last affirmation. I can't remember, but there's no one better to be than myself. Gas ourselves up. When Beyonce dropped That Girl, I couldn't get enough of the song because that's my energy. So yeah, there's no one better to be than myself. And so here are some resources for therapy. Therapy for Black Girls is a great directory. It's nationwide, and you can filter the results by if you prefer virtual or in person, if you have insurance or don't have insurance. All of the providers on there are Black women who typically work with Black women. And so excellent resource. Psychology Today is similar to therapy for Black girls, but it's for everybody. And so you can find a therapist there as well. Open Path Collective is really helpful if you have a budget for therapy. The clinicians on there, and I hope I don't butcher this, the clinicians on there agree to keep sessions between $60 and $70, or $60 to $80, or something like that. In order to join that website as a potential client, you just have to do a very quick application. It's approved very quickly, and then you can connect with the therapist through that portal. The Loveland Foundation is specific to Georgia, so I don't know if anybody here is in Georgia, but they are for the foundation that covers therapy for Black women up to 10 sessions, 8 to 12 sessions. And again, you just have to do an application, and they send you vouchers to meet with a therapist that's within their network. If you are outside of Georgia, I would definitely do your best to try to look into any opportunities like that might be more local. Connect with a high school or college counselor. And then lastly, get a list of in-network providers from your insurance company. So if you're under your parents' insurance, you can ask them to get that for you as a dependent, and then you can have either no cost for services, or it'll be a copay that is hopefully manageable. So those are a couple resources to connect with a therapist. Last year, someone asked, outside of therapy, are there ways to like help support myself or take care of myself? And we briefly spoke about like doing yoga as a way to do like a meditative practice or a wellness practice. I recently completed my sound bowl certification, So the sound bath, sound healing, that's another avenue if you're into chakras and such. What else did we talk about? Then we talked about, I believe, like religion and spirituality. If like church is your therapy, then 100% lean into whatever faith or spiritual practice that might be beneficial to you. All right, and so lastly, this is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call or text 988, and they will connect you with someone who can talk with you and or connect you to resources in your area. I do my best to include this in every presentation I give because that's just the state of the world. Sometimes you don't know what someone is going through and they may not have been aware of this resource, or you may know someone who's going through something like this, and now you have this resource to give to other people. Just like 911, if it's mental health, 988, okay? And that's the end of my presentation. I post on this Instagram. I've been on a little bit of a break from this Instagram, but I had plans to post again, but there's still some good stuff on there from when I was more consistent. But if you want to stay connected or you're interested in just little tips and information, then this is my professional page. Feel free to follow it. But that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see y'all and answer any questions you might have.
Well, first of all, good evening. My name is Davina Perry, and I am your Miss South Carolina HBCU teen. I really enjoyed your presentation. I actually do have kind of a personal connection with mental health because there's a mental health project we do yearly at my school called Love Yourself, and it just really helped me relate to your presentation. So my question to you was, how does it feel working within an industry that does not really have much representation, for Black women?
That's the first time I've gotten that question. Well, thank you for asking that. And I go back and forth because my grad program, I was one of two in my entire cohort. And so that is just the reality of what the mental health field can look like. However, since I've been practicing, I've been surrounded by Black female clinicians. And while there's still plenty of work that needs to be done in having our voices heard and our clients' voices heard, we're out here. Therapy for Black girls, you can scroll for days of clinicians that are available and ready to help support. And so while I definitely want to be a champion for advocacy and having our stories told and having our resources available, we're out here. And I've never felt so supported in the industry than the women that I've come across over the last couple of years. So I hope that answered your question adequately.
It did. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Morgan.
Hi, my name is Morgan Reese Willens. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am your Miss Peach State HBCU Junior Teen. Just like Davina said, I really loved your presentation. I feel like it's really important. So thank you for sharing with us. My question is, what do you think the biggest mental health misconception is?
Ooh. The biggest mental health misconception, I would have to say, is how uncomfortable it is, specifically in the Black community. There's a lot of fear that I am telling this random person my business and I'm not gonna like it and all of this stuff. And that can be true for some people. Some people may not like talking about the things that are going on. However, more times than not, whenever a client starts with me and that's their story, by the end of the first, maybe second session, they're saying, dang, I think I like this. Like I'm talking to this person that doesn't have a stake in the game, that is unbiased, that isn't my mom, my sister, who's gonna go back and tell auntie so-and-so. When they really lean into the nature and the benefits of therapy and are open to the process, then that's a big misconception that ends up being dispelled. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw a lot of hands go up at the same time, and so I can go in the order I see. Precious Foreman.
Hi, I know I came in during your presentation, but my name is Precious Foreman. I'm your Miss Virginia HBCU Junior Team. And it's so great to meet you. I absolutely love this presentation and all that you're doing. But I actually had a question about just, I guess, a little bit more specific to us. I know pageant weekend is coming up, and I just wanted to ask if you had any like quick tips or anything during pageant weekend to make sure that like we're staying calm, having good energy, because I know it's going to be a lot going on. So
yeah, absolutely. So I chose the box breathing coping skills specifically for y'all because I know that time is of the essence, and that is an anxiety-inducing situation to be in. And so if you do have, I think I had us go for a minute and 30 seconds, a minute and 40 seconds to practice some breathing, to affirm yourself, to ground yourself. I'm a fan of stress balls. I'm a fan of chewing ice. Whatever it is that you might be able to enjoy that's pretty quick for you may be very beneficial. If you have someone in your close circle or even another contestant who you can just look at and say, girl, I'm scared, or girl, I'm nervous, I'm overwhelmed, having someone that can listen and support will also be a great recommendation that I would offer. I've never been in a pageant, so I can't speak to the specific stressors and nerves that might come up, but those are some general ideas that come to mind.
thank you.
There you are. You're welcome. All right, I see Erin McClendon. She frozen?
I think Erin might be frozen. We can come back to her.
Yeah, I see Tyra Davis next.
Hi, my name is Tyra Davis, and I am from Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm your Miss Heart of DC HBCU Junior Team. And I just want to say I enjoyed your presentation. For me, I think with me being a junior, I've gained a lot of anxiety from the experiences that I went through. But I did want to ask you, I've heard a lot of this like in therapy on like TV shows and stuff for Black women specifically. So what is CBT and what are the treatments and the symptoms that you can see in like other Black women? That's fine.
Okay. So CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a very common approach that majority of clinicians use. It's all about shifting our thinking. And so I don't know if I can pull it up quick enough, but there's something called the cognitive triangle where we have our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors at each point of the triangle. And the arrows are bidirectional, so they're all pointing to each other because our thoughts can influence our emotions, which can influence our behaviors. And oftentimes when we can shift our thoughts, then our emotions follow, therefore our behaviors follow, and then we have a more positive cycle going on. And so that's what CBT is all about, shifting our thoughts so that we can have different emotions and behaviors. And then your second part of the question was something about Black people.
So my question was like, what are like the symptoms of CBT? Because when I was watching the therapy interviews, it always seemed like a negative thing, and like Black people made it, well, not just us, but in general, it's just seen as a negative type thing, even though it's a positive thing and it'll help you in the long run. So now that I know, like, I kind of asked for like the symptoms and everything, but now that it's like a positive aspect, I think that there are no symptoms. It's just like you're just showing positivity. So thank you for that, for answering my question.
Absolutely, yeah. CBT is a treatment modality, and so it's a way that therapists do therapy. It can be used for a majority of common treatments: depression, anxiety, PTSD, social anxiety. It's something that most therapists will lean to naturally. So very cool. Thank you. Let's see, Miss Texas.
Hi, my name is Leah Kennedy, and I'm Miss Texas HBCU teen. And my question is, when it comes to Black people in therapy, they never tell us like which forms of therapy you can try, because there is, like how Ms. Davis brought up, there is CBT, but there are also life coaches. There are different types of therapy. So when they say, oh, you should go and get therapy, well, which type? Is all of them serve a different purpose. So does it happen for like people with depression, you go get this type? So does it matter on what you're personally dealing with that you go and get this therapy, or do you deal with it like separately? Like you go and seek faith in different places?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. So coaches versus therapists, those are two different arenas. And so coaches, you'll think of like a life coach, or you need guidance in studying or preparing for a certain exam, right? Coaches don't have the same clinical background. Now, some are therapists and coaches. Some kind of dip into both pots, but typically we're told to keep those two areas separate. When you're going to a therapist, then you typically have a mental health concern, and that could be any type of mental health concern. And you can look at, like on Therapy for Black Girls, Psychology Today, all those resources I named, therapists will put in their biography what areas they specialize in. So if they specialize mainly in working with college students, or schizophrenia or depression, they'll make note of that. And so that can kind of help you explore what therapists might be a good fit. But I do want to note that there's a difference, not a major difference, but there's a difference between like a PhD, a doctoral level clinician, and then a psychiatrist, and then a mental health professional that's at the master's level. Psychiatrists, they can offer therapy, but their main wheelhouse is like medication. And then you have PhDs or master level therapists, and our main area is like the talking part of therapy. Some may be able to prescribe because they went through like an extra level, but majority of clinicians focus on talk therapy, or even another type of therapy that I forgot to mention that I'm trained in is called EMDR, and that stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. Sounds very fancy, but it's way more straightforward than it sounds. That form of therapy is helpful for really depression, anxiety, trauma, because it doesn't involve as much talking. It will take me another 10 minutes to kind of explain like what it looks like and the benefits, but it's essentially allowing our bodies to do the work more so than trying to find the language or the words to communicate what we experience or what we're trying to process, because we don't always have that. And so in all instances, when looking at therapists, please do your own research, but also don't be afraid to ask questions. You can email them, call them, schedule a consultation just to get a better idea of what they work with. But yes, that's a great question. I'm going to start including that in future presentations, the difference in the different types of therapists. All right, Gabrielle.
Good evening. My name is Gabrielle Lamaser. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm your Miss Maryland HBCU team. My question is, I know you touched on it just a tiny bit in the last question, is what kind of more unconventional types of therapy do you recommend? Because I know a lot of times when you say therapy and people think of therapy, they think of sitting down, you're face to face with a therapist and you're just talking about your problems and they're providing you with information. But are there any different ways that aren't so commonly talked about that you would recommend people trying out? Because I know I tried the sit down type of therapy where I was just sitting and I was talking with somebody, and I think that it was very helpful and very lucrative, but I think I want a different type of way to express my feelings and then go through different things with somebody else.
Okay. So that is a little bit tricky, only because I would need more information to truly offer like a recommendation on like other ways to handle, because what we experience, we experience it differently, and then the way we like present after experiencing it might like vary. But some people do find there's like trauma-informed yoga that some people find helpful, where the different positions in some way release or connect or are just helpful in processing. Like I was just talking about the EMDR, that's not as much talking. And that might be another way. It's still with the therapist and you still have to kind of like check in, but the processing part isn't all conversation. Some people find relief in like journaling, so like a narrative experience, whether it's just like writing about what's going on, what's happened, and then just holistic practices. I think I've heard of people, no, I don't want to mention that one, but like I mentioned earlier, the sound bowl, there's some other options out there that might feel a little more realistic to where you are and what you might want. Whoever you were meeting with, I would definitely have you ask them as well if they have any recommendations based on like what you're coming with. I hope that was helpful.
It was, thank you.
You're welcome. And then is it Alea?
Yes, my name is Alea Miller Gibson. I am from Baltimore County, Maryland, and I'm your Miss Maryland HBCU Junior Team. And my question today is, how would we go about helping other people? I know this workshop was targeted toward our mental health, but when it just comes to somebody maybe venting to you, how would you go about giving them advice or helping them without maybe setting them off?
Mm-hmm. I like that question. And one part to note is that one, we have to maybe think about if they even want advice, right? Sometimes they may just want to vent and that's just the end of it, because they may be a friend or someone we care about. We naturally want to offer like some type of recommendation or advice, but sometimes they do just need to say something. If you feel like it's something that's beyond like what you feel like you're comfortable handling and you want to let, I don't know, a teacher, counselor, their parent, an older sibling, somebody else know, just so somebody else has a set of eyes on them and what's going on, then I would definitely recommend that. The information you gain from this workshop, you can take it to them and see if they're interested in anything that was included. But the biggest thing that I would say is to be that listening ear. They came to you for a reason. It sounds like they likely trust you, or that you guys have that type of relationship. And so feel free to ask them like, hey, I know you just told me X, Y, and Z was going on. How can I best support you? Is there anything that I can do? What do you need from me? Can I bring you lunch one day on a Saturday? Sometimes those little things can be really helpful in supporting friends that are going through tough situations. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Erin, I see that you are back if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Erin. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm your Miss Missouri HBCU team. So my question was, how do you give yourself grace? Because I do a lot. I have a lot of schedule and some. So I beat myself up about it a lot. So,
okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh. You were breaking up, but I think I get the gist of your question. I heard you saying, how do I give myself grace, especially if I'm like beating myself up? I have a lot going on. Yeah. So my shorter answer to that, because I have a whole spiel about that, is it's going to be a work in progress. It sounds a little odd, but you have to give yourself grace in giving yourself grace, right? We can beat ourselves up about beating ourselves up. And so one, sometimes it can be helpful to look back on where we've been before and say, you know what, I've still come a long way. I might not have everything done that I want done, but I've still done a great job. Or look at your strengths. I have some clients write down all of their accomplishments or all of the positive qualities about themselves, and that's something that will stay true through your lifetime, right? The things that are more solid and firm to stand on. Understanding that you're a human, that you're one person, that you are somewhere in the teens and you have a lot of life to live and you don't have to have it all figured out. And taking some of the pressure off of yourself. I know pressure can come from a lot of different directions, especially when we're in a transitional phase and preparing to take on a lot. However, when we can kind of tune out that noise and focus on ourselves, what's in front of us, and be kind to ourselves, or even I have some people ask themselves, if a friend came to you saying the things that you're saying to yourself, what would you say to them? Because sometimes we're nicer to other people than we can be to ourselves. And so that might be a good exercise for you to give it a try. If you would tell a friend, girl, you know how great you are, you did X, Y, and Z, you got this going on, you're this kind of person, then go ahead and say that to yourself. It's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, ladies, thank you all for being so engaging this evening. Phallon, thank you so much for once again coming to host the mental health workshop. The ladies took a lot away from it, from what I can tell in their questions, and we're just really thankful for you always continuing to support the Miss HBCU Teen Pageant. So we hope to see you again next year. Ladies, if you could stay on for just a second, that would be great.
Thank you, everyone. Best wishes, and good luck on pageant weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.